This has turned out to be complete shambles, hasn't it? Oh. Right, says reconnection is successful. I think we're live again. Right, let's just quickly, I have to start. Right, send Nick the link. I feel like an idiot, right? NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. 500 times, we're halfway there. Hopefully it doesn't take as long as the first 500 did. Right. Let's see if it doesn't crash anymore then. Ready for the next 500? Right, ready? 3, 2, 1, and NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. Hello X, cute Bella X. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. Please don't crash again, stream. I'm going to quit. This is not going well. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. Right, please we get Nick in the stream. Let's try. We can do this. If you think it's worth Nick seeing me saying his name 1,000 times, please could try and get Nick in the stream. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. Woo! Oh my gosh, NicsterV! Oh my gosh! Oh! Oh my gosh! Wait, is that actually NicsterV? Is that NicsterV? Oh my gosh! NicsterV! NicsterV! Oh my gosh! NicsterV! Hello! Hello! NicsterV! Hello! Oh my gosh, I can't believe this! I'm gonna stand up right now. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this! NicsterV! This is NicsterV! NicsterV, is this you, NicsterV? Oh my gosh, hi! Hi! I'm so happy! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I'm so happy! Thank you so much for joining! I'm so happy. Let me just go and tell my entire house. I'll be right back. Ben, next to me is my stream. Ben, in here. Ben, look, Nick. He's probably left now. Oh my gosh, my heart.
Universal Studios Roblox.
Huh?
Universal Studios Roblox.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, hi, next to me.
I don't think he's there anymore.
I think Nick's left now, but that was amazing. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, NicsterV. NicsterV. I am so happy right now. I am so happy.
Your streams are flying.
I need to refresh that. Oh my gosh. NicsterV. Oh my gosh, he's still in the stream. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding.
Hi, NicsterV. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm freaking out.
You sound like Shadow Call.
I'm so happy.
NicsterV ever praying.
Let's finish off. Let's finish this off. NicsterV. I'm saying NicsterV 1,000 times then.
NicsterV.
NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV. NicsterV, 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 oh my gosh, NicsterV, NicsterV, next to V, 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 next to V. Next to V, 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 800 times we have said next to V in this live stream. Oh my gosh. Hi Nick.
Mr. Top 5, Mr. Top 5,
Mr. Top 5, Mr. Top 5, Mr. Top 5. That's a mouthful to say compared to next to V.
Mr. When you get to
Yeah, just do it separately. Mr. Then top. 5.
I'm just gonna top it off.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy right now. Oh my gosh, I'm shaking. Oh my gosh, hi next to me. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy right now. Sorry, man. My brother is here now.
Too loud.
Next to me, oh my gosh. You do realise it's a year since you joined my stream and you have joined yet again. I am so happy. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Hey, what time was it when he called you?
It was around this time. I'm so happy right now.
Gosh, it looks like people.
Thank you so much for joining, Nick. Oh my gosh.
It looks like people have got their Christmas lights on.
I just can't believe this. I'm so happy. Oh my gosh.
Mr. Top 5.
What should we do now, guys?
Somebody knows.
Nick's in the stream. I guess what should we do? Should we just celebrate? Let's party. Oh my gosh.
Watch one of his old videos. No.
No.
Watch one of his videos. Oh, whatever. Oh, watch the video when he called you.
I made a video, didn't I? I made one. Oh my gosh, I'm actually standing up and dancing right now. I'm so happy. Oh my gosh.
Who's he?
Razorfish Gaming?
What the?
How did you find my stream?
Wait,
How on earth did you find my stream?
Wait, I know him. I know he's a fish gaming. I go on his channel thing. Why is this on? Oh, GD. Oh yeah, I know him. And also GD Insane.
I'm so honestly happy right now. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What should we do? We've got Nick and Razorfish Gaming in the stream, guys. What should we do? What should we do?
Say Razorfish Gaming 1,000 times.
We need.
Razorfish Gaming.
I mean, I need to finish off this first. Next to V, 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 next to V. Next to V, 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 next.
Actually really kind.
Oh my gosh! No live stream offline. No. Oh no! Don't go offline now.
Is it offline?
Oh no! It's gone offline. We're still online, right? Next to V, 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 next to V. Right, 900. We have 100 more times to say next to V, and then we've said it next to V 1,000 times in this live stream. For the second time, as last year, I also said it 1,000 times. Are we ready, everyone?
That means, yeah, a year ago it was Saul's birthday.
Mhm.
Celebrate it.
Are we ready?
No, because I'm going to go to just and watch.
Alright, see you then.
This is absolutely.
Next to V, 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 next to V. 90. Next to V, 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 next to V. 80. Next to V, 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 next to V. 70. Next to V, 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 next to V. 60. Next to V, 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 next to V. 50. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. I'm just gonna go now. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV.
Top 5.
5 more.
Mr. Top 5. It's 5
We have
more.
5 more to go, Mr. Top 5. You ready? Everyone say it with me now. NicsterV, 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 NicsterV.
Hold on. Can I just say something, Holly? Can you repeat that, please?
No. NicsterV.
That's what I meant. Repeat NicsterV.
Oh, okay. Woo! We did it! 1,000 times we said NicsterV. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Oh my gosh!
You have to be quiet.
No, I can't be quiet, Ben. How do you expect me to be quiet? If you want to go, you can go. I mean, just put up with my noise. I'm a loud person. You should know that by now. Oh my gosh, what should we do to celebrate?
I don't know. It's up to you.